Sensei Mish here. I'm here with Grandmaster Bram Frank. We're actually hosting a birthday training camp or an instructor camp and celebrating his birthday because in fact the day that we are filming this, it is his birthday. How old are you now?
65.
65 years young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't, it's hard. I can't picture 65.
Yeah.
The Beatles, when I turned 64, will you still love me? I got 64, 65. Yeah. But yes, today's my birthday and Misha's taking great care of me. But yes, I'm 65 years young.
Yeah. So last week I was in Indiana. I went and trained with Mark Klein and Jim Korn and a bunch of great folk out there. I had an awesome time. And so when I got out there, I talking to Grandmaster Korn, and he's like, he says, we were talking about Bram because he knew that I was hosting him the following weekend, and so we kind of talked off and on about that. And then he says, he starts telling me this story where at a Dillman camp long ago, there was this little this guy that had one of Bram's first knives. At the time he said it was the gunting. So we're trying to, as Bram and I were talking earlier, we were trying to figure out the exact time frame that this happened, but because even Jim was like, it happened long ago. So he was showing the gunting, and he was showing the kinetic opening, and he was opening on people, and he ended up opening it on Jim Korn's thigh. And Jim was like, I had a new gi, I had brand new gi pants, and when he opened it up, because of the design of the knife, we always, whenever we give somebody who's never owned an LLC or a gunting, it's like, don't open this on yourself. And what do half the people do? Well, they open it on themselves. Some people get cut, and that's why. By design, it's designed to cut as it opens. So, of course, especially with that design, there's a little blade on the back tip of the blade, or an edge on the back tip. So as it cuts a nice little line right across the gi pants, and then all of a sudden, his nice white gi pants, nice little hole, little bit starts going red. And so Jim was like, he says, it wasn't that bad of a cut. I put a Band-Aid on it. He says, but I went to the guy that did that, and he was like, okay, so those were some really nice pants. How can you compensate me? So he ends up giving him this training knife. And Jim was like, it's a really cool knife. I'll have to show it to you sometime. While you're out here, remind me. And the conversation kind of went back and forth. Because I was there for a few days, and he's like, remind me. So on Sunday, we're all getting ready, and I had, in fact, I think I had actually taught my session. Grandmaster Korn comes over, hands me the knife, and he says, this is the knife that I was telling you about. He says, I want you to have it. In fact, if, pass it on to Bram, wish him a happy birthday from me. And I was like, yeah, sure, I can do that. And I'm very impressed. It's not plastic. It was a resin. Jim talked very highly about it, and I was very impressed. And but I really didn't spend a lot of detail looking at it. I was like, okay, it holds nice. It's sturdy. And so I was like, well, I'm going to honor Grandmaster Korn's wish and pass it on to Bram. So I pick up Bram at the airport, and later that day, we're back at the house, and I tell him, I have a present and a story. So I tell him the story, and he's kind of cringing as I tell the whole opening the knife on the body, and then I hand him the knife, and he goes silent, and his face is in awe. And then what do you tell me?
Well, first I realized Mish was looking at me because I'm just sort of looking at it because I can't believe that he put this in my hand. It's a nice present and all, of course, but that's not why I'm going, I haven't seen this for a lot of years. And yeah, it's well made because see, it's got my logo on it. And on this side, in kanji, it says Dragon's Tooth, which was my company because I handmade these. And I made them between 92 and I think up to 96 was the last time I was making them. But it was very funny that the knife he wanted to give me as a present and they all thought was so great, I've been using it for a long time, is made by me a long time ago. And each of these guys have used it have said they've used it faithfully and actually used it and done stuff, and it's lasted. And when I said it's mine, and Mish sort of looked at me and I said, my logo's right there. Oh yeah, see it matches that logo right there.
And I felt kind of stupid because I know the logo and I don't know why I didn't recognize it earlier. I was like, oh my gosh, it's your knife. Yeah, I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, and I want you to know, when I first started making training knives, I did it actually for me, because there were no training knives. Nobody had training knives. People went, why would you want one of those? They'd use a stick, they'd use a piece of paper, a cardboard roll. Some people use a flat piece of wood, and I'm like, why don't we have training knives? This run of Dragon Nails, you can see this is actually a recon from SOG. This is before I actually had my knife in design and done. So I took all the most common knives, fixed blades and folders, and I put them into surgical silicone so that the handles are identical. All the detailing on this knife, this training knife, is exactly the same and same dimensions as the real one. No, the real one's blade is not that thick. Well, I don't know, actually, you can see it has grind lines on it. It's actually got the grind in it. Well, what I did was, on the prototype to make the mold, there's a very thin blade. And then I press the real knife, both sides, into a mold, and I poured them with Pourcast 2, which is a very expensive resin that's UV resistant. And I take those two, when it dries, pull it out, and of course, the grind's in it perfectly. And then I super glue them and bond them onto the very thin blade so it's thick enough so it'll hold pressure. I shape it and fill it. Make sure everything is perfectly smooth. I added a safety tip to it so nobody can get, jammed or hurt or anything when you're playing. And then we spray it like you do with any mold so that it's totally smooth. Every detail shows, but there's no imperfections. And that's what you use to make the production mold. And that way it's got a thick blade. The grind lines are exactly where they're supposed to be for a knife. But the most important thing is it fits in your hand. And if you know me, I'm real big about ergonomics. So if you own a SOG and you pick this up, this training knife is exactly the same as your real knife. And I did it for, Spyderco knives and Benchmade knives and Cold Steel knives and Randalls and Recons and you name it. And I just started making them. And Mish and I were talking about this morning, and there's probably tens of thousands of them out there. I never thought about it. And as I kept saying I want to make training knives, Knives Illustrated called me the father of the modern training knife. As I said, before I did it to a nun, I used to do it for remake. Used to carve them out of wood, just like a real knife. A whole fixed blade piece. I'd bond handles on either side. And it was funny because, little digression, people are just finding out my cartoons from the old days. And in the middle of someone saying they have my cartoons, didn't know they were mine, people said, I've got these really cool training knives that I got with it. I bet you they're yours. And I didn't relate it to this one. I had mentioned it to Mish, and I mentioned it to Sonia Ryan, and Sonia and Ryan looked at me and said, people are actually have my old trainer still. And sure enough, this knife has gone complete circle to come back to me. Because I went to whoever the Filipino instructor was, to go to Grandmaster Korn, to go to Mish, to come back to me. And we just made a post on Facebook. And you see all the people posting pictures of knives and firearms that I make, or made back then. And Michael de Bethencourt, one of the instructors at SIG Arms and a security guy and loves snub nose, just put a note, someone stole his snub nose 38 that I used to make. And would I please I mentioned I still have the mold somewhere, would I start pouring them again? now everybody's going in. John Morbeck just posted,
Yeah.
because he had my fixed blade, a Model 1 Randall, a Spyderco folder, and they actually have the clips and all the screws there and everything, in a claws, my Glock 19 with my whole grip, and Mish and I were laughing because he'd blow the picture up. Oh look, my logo is on the gun, the folder, and the fixed blade. But it's just really cool karma for my 65th to find that cartoons are coming back to me, training knives are coming back to me, and you know, it's one of those cool things. You never realize what you've contributed. Most people pass away and people who are with them go, do you know what the guy did? I'm blessed that right now, because things are coming back and going, I really did contribute to what goes on out there in the martial art world. I just never expected, like I said, I made them for me. You know, and deferred the cost by making them for a lot of people. But very strange to have it come back. You know, karma is very funny.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just amazed. I was in awe when he's like, yeah, this is mine. I was like, it's yours. Yeah, I just think it's so cool. Just everything comes full circle.
And this one, you guys can't see it, there's a dimple right here. I told Mish that's where I pushed the mold too hard. And that's where there's a dimple right here. And you know, this little mark on the top, and the way it has a scoring on the top, that's where the sprue is, where I poured it into the mold.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. We wanted to share this story with you guys because, you know, he did post that picture on Facebook, but I just thought it was so cool about just, you know, everything coming full circle, the story behind it, some of the safety things when it comes to Bram's knives. You know, don't open it on yourself. But this most importantly. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you and happy
Thank you very
birthday,
much.
sir.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Cool.